Hey, 8th grade. So, welcome to English class. I hope you have finished your writing stuff for today before you start doing this. Not that they're related, but I just like to stay in the same mindset of sticking to the same schedule because we need that schedule. Because, like it or not, this is week 5 of online learning. Congratulations, you survived a month of doing this stuff when none of us wanted to. Let me tell you, I miss being in my classroom. I miss being with you guys. I hope I've made that abundantly clear to all of y'all because I can't stand this much longer. But we still got another month of school, so I'm just gonna have to deal with it, and y'all gonna have to deal with it too. So, with all of that in mind, I hope that you guys have slowly started to develop a routine and you've got one in place because from here on out, we're just going to operate like we have been. You're going to have until Friday to complete everything. But again, that doesn't mean that you wait until Friday to complete it all. But just so you guys know, we've been doing this for a month now. I've given grace where I can give it. But from now on, if I don't have everything from you by Friday, it is a zero, no ifs, ands, or buts unless the if and or but is because of technological issues. And if that's the case, you need to let me know immediately. If you're having internet trouble or if you're having some technology trouble, let me know immediately and we'll take care of that as we need to. And I'll give you some grace on that, but that is the only reason that you can give for not completing this stuff. Because otherwise, if I don't have it by the end of Friday, it's going to be a zero, plain and simple. So leaving that in your hands, and we'll just go from there. So we are still going to stay stuck on this dreaming kind of stuff and this dream theme, except we're not going to be looking at short stories this week. We are going to be looking at poetry. And I know you guys hear the word poetry and you may groan or you may go, ugh. Even you may not just think about groaning, you may actually groan, which is even better because you're being expressive and it's okay to have emotions. And that is the best part about poetry, is because it includes a lot of emotions. You guys may be thinking, I've never really understood poetry. Poetry's weird. It doesn't say a whole lot. It's real short and but it's supposed to say a ton, and I don't get it. But that's the point, because it is a little bitty chunk, but it says so much because it's so structured and it's so beautiful, and it reveals a lot about the author's what the author's trying to say through so little. And that's what makes a good poet, is that they're able to say a lot with very few words. So today you're going to be looking at a rather famous poem and a rather famous poet by the name of Langston Hughes. And some of you may have heard him before, but Langston Hughes is a rather famous African-American poet. And so if you guys look on GradeLink and look at the right schedule tab for 427 to 5-1, it says week 5 on there as well. You are to watch this video, and then after you get done watching this one, there is a link to a short little bio video on Langston Hughes. And you don't have to take notes on that video. You don't have to actually do anything specific with that video, but I just want you to watch it just so that you have some more context on who this guy is and why he's so important, because it's a lot more interesting than me just talking to you about why he's so important. And then after you do that, you're going to look at 2 of his poems on Actively Learned. And I want you to look at these poems in the order that I have listed them. So the first one is called Mother to Son, and the second one is called Dreams. And I want you to read them in that order. So work on Mother to Son first, finish the assignment there, and then work on Dreams second. Dreams is really short. It's only 2 stanzas. It's like 8 lines long, and it may seem easier to complete the shorter one first, but there's a reason that I want you to do Mother to Son first, because it really talks about dreams in a really interesting way. And then it's almost like this other Dreams poem continues that idea. They're not written to be read together, but they do have the same idea, and I think it's important to look at how one author illustrates the same idea twice. So that's all you're doing for today, basically. Just really pay attention to what you're asked to do on both of those assignments, especially in that final writing question. I gave you some very specific instructions on what I want you guys to do there, and that's really all you have to do for today. But don't go do that just yet, because I've got one more thing to tell you. So poetry is hard. It's difficult to read sometimes. And since you guys haven't really read much poetry, I mean, we haven't looked at poetry at all in English class, and I was kind of saving it for the end because it's easier to, pick apart and analyze once you guys have had a lot of other literary training with looking at themes and larger ideas and all of that stuff that we've been working on since all the way back in Despero. But the biggest thing that I want you guys to do is when you're reading these poems, I want you to read them 3 times. So right now, if you don't have a pencil and paper handy, pause the video and go get it, because I'm going to give you something that you need to do when you read these poems, and I expect you to do this. So pause the video right now, go get what you need, and then come back. Okay, we back. So when you're reading these poems, you're going to read them 3 times. So if you want to go ahead and number your paper 1 through 3, go ahead and do that right now. And then with number 1, what I want you to do, write this down, is just read the poem all the way through. So just read the poem all the way through. And if you want to put some other bullet points under that, read the poem all the way through, you need to put a bullet point or a dash or something that says don't stop. Okay? Just read it straight through. Don't stop. Second bullet underneath that is don't force the words. What I mean by that is don't force the words. Simple as that. But what that means is when you're not forcing the words, you are reading it naturally. And the reason to point, and a good way to point that out is you guys are all familiar with The Night Before Christmas, okay? Poetry is written in a certain meter, in a certain rhythm. And The Night Before Christmas is really easy to illustrate this because I'm just going to rattle off the first few lines here and just listen to how they sound, okay? 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Okay, you guys can hear that, right? There's a certain beat, rhythm, pattern. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. It's like every third syllable or so, it makes me want to like go forward. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. And I'm not even forcing that. That's just how the words flow. And that's because they're written in a certain meter or a certain collection of syllables that are stressed and unstressed, and they're following a certain pattern. And so these poems in particular, they also follow a certain pattern. So what I mean by this, number 1, is you don't stop. You just read it, and you don't force the words either. You read it all the way through, and you don't stop, and you don't force the words. You read it as it sounds. So just, read it normally. Read it out loud, okay? That's the best thing to experience poetry, is read it out loud, don't stop, and don't force the words. Just let the rhythm just naturally work its way into your speaking, okay? You guys should be able to do that, and that should be fairly straightforward. The second thing is the second reading. So this is your number 2 on the notes you're taking right now. Your second reading, you can read through, and that is when you can stop and click on the annotations, okay? That's where you can stop and try to make sense of stuff. So number 2 is read it again. So read it again, comma, but stop and read the annotations. Read it again, comma, but stop and read the annotations. And if you want to put a bullet underneath that, you can say that if you want to look up, so look up any unfamiliar words, look up anything you don't know. That's where you can, highlight over words and ask Actively Learn to define it for you, because that is a feature that it has. And so number 2 is basically you're reading it again, but you can stop this time, okay? So you stop this time, you look for the annotations, you look up words, you can define words, you're taking it slower this time. So the first time you read it all the way through and you don't stop. Second time, you're reading it, but you're taking it more slowly. You're trying to digest it. You're looking for little things here and there, all right? Now, number 3, the third reading. The third reading is basically you repeat step 1, okay? That's all you need to do. Repeat step 1. So basically, you're just going to read through the whole thing again, and then that will end your reading of the entire thing, okay? So that's basically what I want to leave you guys with. So just to review that, just make sure you have all of that. Number 1, read the poem straight through. don't stop, and follow the natural rhythm of the words themselves. Number two, take it slower. You can read the poem again, but stop on the annotations and read those and look up any words you don't know. Number three, you just repeat step one and read it all the way through. Now, you may be asking, Mr. Marsh, why do I have to read the poem 3 times? Well, because as I addressed in the beginning, poetry's hard. It's not easy to comprehend, and it often takes more than one reading to try to figure it out, because the more you read it, the more you get used to it, and slowly you'll start to understand it a little bit more and more. For those of you that have read the same book over and over again, you pick up on something new every time you read it. And that's kind of what we're trying to mimic here, but it's poetry, so it's really short and we can do it on a much quicker basis. So I'll leave you guys with that. So just promise me that you are going to read the poem 3 times. Try to read it out loud. That really helps me. And even if you're not that kind of person, I would highly suggest reading these poems out loud as you work through this. All right. So to recap, you're watching the video on Langston Hughes, you're completing Mother to Son, and you're completing Dreams on Actively Learn, and you are to read those poems 3 times following those instructions that I just gave you. Other than that, I'm really looking forward to what you guys write about and respond to these poems, and I really hope that you continue to enjoy our unit on the theme of dreams.